Awesome. So like I said, our goal today is just to work on our processes from A to Z for both buyer and seller. We're not going to deep dive into anything, but the goal here is that you leave today, that you know the whole process from start to end, what it looks like. So you've got a roadmap to work on. And then with that roadmap, you can identify any tools, tech, or systems that you need to implement, or any skills that you need to start working on. So for example, part of our buyer process will of course be the buyer consultation, which we're not going to go into today, but if that's a skill that you feel like you need brushing up on, when you're looking through your list, you can identify it and say, hey, this is a place where I start to need practicing on my scripts, pick up a role play partner, start pairing up with them so that I'm practicing it more frequently. And so we're going to go through a couple different stages of each of these processes. And at the end of each stage, I want us to brainstorm a little bit and talk about what we think we could add in, or is that the complete version of the steps that we would take in that scenario? And so I want you to have a pen and paper or your laptops going, wherever you're going to take down notes for what this process is. Because my goal for you at the end of this class is that you have that list. You have your very own checklist of everything that you're going to do when you pick up a buyer all the way to closing, and then when you pick up a seller all the way to closing. And we'll brainstorm at the end of each section in case somebody has a great idea to share with us that we can add to our checklists as well. So I'm going to start by sharing the resource folder here. Share my screen. Open up our resource folder. And so I went down to working with buyers and working with sellers in the resources folder. And I opened up the 2 checklists that Jen has in there. And like I said, we're going to start with buyers, and then about halfway through, we'll switch to sellers once we're completed with the buyer section. As we mentioned on our town hall meeting, we are working to clean up the resources folder. It's gotten messy as we kept piling more and more information into it. And so some of it is a little outdated and needs to be updated. And then some of it just needs to be found a little bit easier. So that's something that we're going to be working on in the coming weeks. All right, so starting with the buyer side. So prior to a consultation, you have now either been referred a new buyer client, or like Linda, you found somebody out when you were door knocking, out hustling for that lead generation. And so now you've got a new contact. And what are some of the first steps that we're going to cover? So I'm going to show you the ones that we have here. And then at the end of it, we'll talk about if we should add anything else in, or if you think that there's anything that we missed. So first, if it's a referral, which a lot of people get at the beginning, is maybe the first way that you start bumping into business. And then I find that agents, we go through a cycle. At the beginning, you're going to get introductions from your sphere and your friends and family and all that, that's where you might get some of your business from. They may be family members. Then you're going to go through a stretch where it's all about hunting for business. And then once you've got an established database, you're going to find that you're going to get more referrals more frequently, right? So it's going to be a little bit of a kind of a swell in terms of how that works. So let's say that you got a referral from somebody. First step would be to thank the person that gave you that referral. You could add in here, sending out a Starbucks or Tim Hortons gift card to that person that sent you the referral. You always want to acknowledge that somebody has thought of you and sent the referral. So always, whatever you decide that little reward or thank you note is going to be, do it just based on the introduction, not based on anything like a deal closing or anything to that effect. And we have those scripts inside the resource folder as well. Send to your client care coordinator. This is going to be if you're on a team or if you have an admin, so that may not be on everybody's list. Then you're going to make the initial phone call to pre-qualify that client. So whether it was, hey, I just bumped into them at the door and now we're going to follow up now that I'm back at the office, or it came from a referral, you're going to have a phone conversation. We're going to start pre-qualifying them, start finding out why they want to move, what they're looking for, how much they might be looking to spend, if they're pre-approved, all that information prior to setting your actual consultation appointment. So the more information that you can gather there during that pre-qualifying stage, the better prepared you're going to be for your consultation, and the more likely you'll be able to convert that lead into a client. Then I've got on here, send a buyer wish list or questionnaire. So this is a step that we do for our team where we've got a set PDF with a lot of questions on it about them, about what they're looking for, what their dream house looks like, what they expect from us. So it's an opportunity to get some more of that information prior to sitting down and having our consultation. And it's a chance, I always say it's a chance for them, especially for buyers, for if it's a couple that's purchasing together, that they can share what it is that they're looking for. And they may discover that one thing's a little bit more important to one of them than to the other one. So it's a good opportunity for them to start communicating right away. And I would say 9 times out of 10, our leads and clients are filling that out prior to our consultation and sending it back to us right away. Then, of course, we'll be going on the consultation. And from there, we'll talk about scheduling the orientation tour. So prior to list, that's all before the consultation. Is there anything else that you would want to add on there prior to going on the consultation, prior to going on to the appointment? Anybody? Even if it's okay, if you think that that's good, then let's just call it. Say that that's good. What do you think? Is anybody doing anything else in there?
I guess it's just maybe knowing that particular market area. Like if they're looking to buy in a certain area, know that area.
Yeah. So let's say that on your pre-qualifying call, you found out that they're looking around for houses in Newmarket, or they're specifically looking at a pocket because of a school district or something like that. Having that homework done prior to your consultation, I would think would be very important. Right? Let's say do market research, their preferred location. Anyone else? All right, I'm going to move along. There is a good one that we do. If anybody has, just like follow-up software that we like or that they like to use, we use QuickPage. And so on the day of, we'll shoot a quick little video saying, hey, can't wait to see you at 4 o'clock tomorrow or 4 o'clock today, whatever the case may be. And then it's a chance for them to see your face prior to actually meeting you if it is indeed a cold lead and not a repeat or return client. So any of these little follow-up systems that you start to build into your business, they're great touch points to make. So you've now had the phone call with them. They get to see your face on a video or you're saying, hey, can't wait to see you. That could be sent by an email as well. It doesn't need to be a video, but just another little follow-up step. So then, of course, we do our consultation. Now on the consultation, we're not going to dive into that today, but again, your goal is to start finding out what's important to them, why it is that they want to move, where they're looking, what they've done so far in terms of pre-qualification, and then start planning your next steps. And so after the consultation is done, this isn't on here, and I haven't done it for many years, but I used to write a thank you note in my car before I left their house, and I'd slip it into their mailbox before I left. And it was a nice little touch of service to say, hey, thank you so much for spending the time to meet with me this evening. Really look forward to getting to know you guys and helping you buy your house, give some feedback on what it was that we talked about that day. And then, of course, I would do my follow-up and everything the next day, but that they got a note from me, in the moment. And this, I would say, actually works a little bit better with your listing consults. But anytime that you're meeting somebody at their house, that's a nice little touch that you could do. So the following day, we send our "This is what I heard" email. So in that email, you're going to review back everything that you talked about during the consultation. Anything that stood out that was important to them, maybe what they're looking for, what they want to spend, when they want to be moved into the new house, what's important about the location that they're going to. Basically feed everything back to them that you discovered during that consultation. And there is a link there for the template so that you guys can follow the same thing. And then I always state on there, if there's anything that I missed or that I didn't get quite right that's important to you, please let me know. And I go on with the rest of my email. But again, it's the point of this is that I'm showing that I've been listening and that I'm invested in what's important to them in the purchase of this home, right? And then it's another step. So then your next step would be setting them up on prospect matches. So either inviting them to use Colab or using Stratus, or if you're on Matrix, setting up your portals. And what's important about these steps in the prospect matches is I want to make sure that at the beginning, you're not bombarding them with too many listings, too much information where it gets daunting. I would even say prior to doing an actual setup on the search, we reference in here the orientation tour. I would say that I would do my orientation tour first, probably prior to them getting set up on my prospect match, so that it's curated, so that I'm picking out everything that I think fits them best based on the information that they gave me. Because with your Colab and Stratus prospect searches, it can be challenging to narrow down what is actually a property that fits for them based on their criteria. Because sometimes the more information in the fields that you put in for your Colab and Stratus, it can narrow down and remove properties that might actually be a fit for them, but just because of that search criteria, it didn't quite work out. But so when you don't put that information in, you cast a pretty wide net, and you could be sending them too many listings. And so we want to make sure that we're curating that as best as possible so that they're not just getting spammed with too many listings.
Dylan, can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
So I go in, I set up the prospect, and then I'm putting in the information based on kind of what their criteria is.
Yes.
So then when I get the results, right? How are you? So then you would set it up that they would get, you send the first one, and then every day after that, they get, updates with anything new, but then how are you modifying those updates before it's going to them?
Yeah. So if it's still on a prospect search, or it's just set to their search on Colab, it will be a wide net for the most part. Right. So what I tend to do is I follow up with them. So based on if they get an email that has 5 in it, I can send them my follow-up email when I'm in the office at 9 a.m. and say, hey, of that 5, here's 2 that actually fit for you. These 3 others that you received, they don't fit, and here's why.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's not that you're filtering the list before they get it every day. You're just observing and making your comments based on what is being sent out.
Exactly. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because there are 2 ways that you can do it. And I have done them both. So it's just up to you based on that client and on your preference. You could have the prospect matches come to you every morning for all of your clients, and then you filter through it and send it out, right? That's one way to filter it. Or it just goes to all of them, and then you just follow up with the information on which one you think is actually a fit for them based on what they've been talking about.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, very welcome. Perfect. So then in terms of the orientation tour, this is your first time taking the buyers out. And with the first time, we cast a little bit wider of a net. And my approach here is, 1, I want them to get familiar with the homes that are on the market. I want them to get a little bit more familiar with the area. I want to use it as an opportunity to have them walk through homes and see what they like and don't like, right? Because sometimes we discover that they like, I really want open concept. And then you start showing them what open concept homes look like in their price range, and there's no room to put any furniture. Everything's so open, and they don't have enough square footage for what they're looking for in that price range, where open concept maybe doesn't quite make sense. So again, it's a chance to start learning that information about what they like and don't like. And I always tell them that this is our orientation tour. You're not allowed to buy anything today, right? And then you'll get the people that'll say, oh, why not? Or I'll insist on buying something, or they'll be like, yeah, that makes sense. But either way, it's a great statement to make and a good chance to get feedback from them and start having conversation and learning what they're about. The other important thing about the orientation tour is you can show them, it's the one time where you can sometimes show them homes that are out of their budget. If they have unrealistic expectations about what they're looking for, you can show them that property. And then when they see that it sells for the price range outside of their budget, they'll understand that, okay, that specific property that I want isn't feasible in my budget, right? So you can kind of show them a little bit of the range. It's almost like when we're doing a CMA, where you show them the low end. This is what our budget is better than. We show them the high end. This is what we can't quite afford. And then we show them, bang on, these are the properties that are in our comfortability range for our budget. And you'll learn based on the client that you're dealing with, what's the best approach there, because it isn't a one-size-fit-all approach. And it won't be a one-size-fit-all market. Sometimes you may only have 2 or 3 listings that actually fit their criteria, right? Hopefully we'll get back to a time where we have more inventory and there'll be a lot of homes that you can show them. When I first started, to show 10, 12 homes on an orientation tour was easy. I was always trying to narrow them down to like my 8. And then other times in the market, I've been like, well, I've got two houses that I can show you right now that are in your price range and in the area that you want. So it's going to vary, right? Depending on market conditions. So then of course, we're going to go on our orientation tour. And we'll talk about that more at further dates as well, like different strategies you can implement there and how you're going to talk about the various homes, how you're going to keep track of the various homes, keeping a running tally of the top 1 to 3 homes. Like I would say your goal is maybe to show 8 if you can. Beyond that, it gets hard for them to keep track of. I wouldn't show more than that, and it can be hectic as it is. And then you just do a rolling tally of what's our top 3 homes. And then as you show one that they like, you can boot one out. And at least that way you're keeping in order, they're prioritizing what they want in those homes. So after the tour, we're going to schedule our next showing date and set up your expectations for what your showing schedule is going to be. I say, don't give up too much control right away, or it's going to be a challenge. You're always going to feel like you're saying no to them. Or they're going to be dictating and you're going to be doing showings at times that's quite inconvenient for you. So set the expectation about when your showing dates and showing schedules are going to be. Then I've got in here, continue to educate. So this would be looking into building some smart plans for yourself and a specific follow-up system in regards to how you're going to educate your buyers as you're going through. So your plain language paperwork should have been dropped off at your buyer consultation. But you could do a smart plan where once, maybe twice a week, they get an email from you that's educated them about the buying process. So you could highlight important clauses in the paperwork. You could have the paperwork go out again. You can talk about conditions, what it means to buy with no financing or home inspection condition. Reminding them about the deposit, that our deposit is due within 24 hours of an accepted offer. If not, at the time of an offer, if you're in a very competitive market and you want to make sure that you're standing out above the crowd, and then continue to educate them about the market. So this is specific to you, making sure that you're following up with them, letting them know what homes are selling for, specifically ones that they've had interest in or that they've raised their hand about or got sent to them in a previous email in your prospect search, that you're updating them on those prices. And the more you can systematize that for yourself, the more prepared you're going to be when that offer comes out of nowhere. When all of a sudden it's the second time out and they're like, hey, let's do an offer. And you still haven't had that moment to explain everything to them. And so it's going to be a little bit longer when you're doing the paperwork. And you just want to make sure that you don't miss anything, that they're feeling confident, that they know the road ahead to make the right decision. So we're going to be reviewing listings daily, emailing and calling them about the listings. And of course, telling them which ones you think might work for them. And weeding out the ones that don't work for them. To be honest, that's a big one. The amount of times that I have buyers that are reaching out saying, oh, I'd like to see this one, and it doesn't fit their criteria, but it's a good looking house. And you've got to say, hey, like, I know that this looks like a good house, but based on this, this, and this that you said, you're not going to want to buy this house. Right. And the amount of times that sometimes we'll have to show them that house anyway, they get a little excited for a minute, and then half hour after you're done the showing, they're like, yeah, no, it just doesn't quite fit. It's not in the right area. We don't want to drive quite that far, whatever it might be. So letting them know why you think homes might not work for them as well is also important. And being very upfront with your buyers. If you tell them like, hey, the biggest challenge you're going to get from me is I'm going to talk you out of buying homes sometimes. I'm going to make sure you don't buy the wrong home, right? So you're going to hear me combating you just a little bit when we're going to see these houses. I'll bring up the points that we talked about at your consultation on why this is a fit or isn't a fit. You're very rarely going to have to talk them into buying the right home. Sometimes you might have to talk them out of buying the wrong home. When you do find the perfect home, you're going to start preparing the paperwork for your offers. We've got our checklist for that. You're going to remind the client about getting their deposit check ready. You're going to share the listing brokerage information for them so they can get that check done. You're going to complete your CMA to make sure you know what's going on in that area and what you think value is going to be on that house. I always tell them in these markets, I give them 3 numbers. I give them what I think the property's worth. I give them what I think they're going to have to pay to get it. And I'm going to give them the price that I don't think they should pay for it no matter what. And that price is always because I'm worried about appraisal. But I tell them I'm going to give them those 3 numbers. So I have to do my CMA to make sure I can get it.
Dylan, sorry, could you just say what those three numbers are again?
Yeah, absolutely. I give them what I think the property is worth, what I think they're going to have to pay to get it,
Oh, okay.
and then what I think they shouldn't pay no matter what. Because sometimes you're going to be blessed with a buyer that's got deep pockets. They'll just say, I want it. I've got the money. I'm going to buy it. You may still have to tell them like, hey, I know you're willing to pay it, but at the price that we're going at right now, I am worried about appraisal. So unless you've got a lot more cash back to make up for the difference, I just want us to be cautious there.
Yeah.
And this
Hey,
is up to,
Dylan,
yes.
about the appraisal question, how would we really know that?
Yeah. So when I'm looking at my CMA, if I can't find any homes that have been selling around that price point that I think we might have to go to, then that's where I start to get concerned, because an appraiser is going to look at all those sales as well. Right. And so sometimes you can get, you'll be in a range where you're like, well, there's at least a couple that have sold around that price tag. They may not be exactly comparable to mine, but at least I know buyers are paying that in this area. If nobody's come close to paying that price tag in this area, even if we are one of the premium homes, I just get a little cautious, because an appraiser could be like, yeah, nobody's come close to paying this amount in that neighborhood. I don't feel comfortable saying that this is the value. Right. But sometimes if there's 15 buyers that are looking to purchase that home and you got a couple of guys with deep pockets, it can get to that situation where you're like, oh, I'm still not the leader in this bidding war right now. And you find out that you might have to go a little bit higher. Yeah, great question. So that's leading up to getting ready to do our signing. And now that we've found the right house, anything that you think we can add in there? Anything that we might have missed, or any questions? All right, I'm going to move on to the day of offers. So we want to send our clients what to expect during the offer process email. And we have a template there in the resource folder.
Hey, Dylan, sorry, I did think of something. The BRA, I know ideally,
yeah,
done at the consultation, or is it done? I know a lot of times people do it right when they're making the offer, but ideally.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that should be on here as well. Sometimes we take that for granted, and that is not the case. So you can do this however you guys choose. It obviously, getting BRA signed right away is our goal. There are a couple of different schools of thought on how you want to approach this. I had a great instructor and kind of mentor at the beginning that was very much of a by referral only kind of system. And he said, you just met somebody and you're asking them to sign a contract with faith in you, and you haven't earned their trust yet.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't feel right to me. So depending on how your consultation goes, who the client is, who the lead is, I've had other great experiences this year where I had BRAs signed with internet leads prior to showing them a property, because I explained to them, like, I'm not just going to show you this property and then have your friend, the realtor, step in later on. So why don't we go through the whole process? I'm going to talk about it. And like, I didn't lead in that hard, but that was essentially the point, right? We did consultations on Zoom prior to having any of that stuff signed as well. So just to make sure I'm not misrepresenting that, but still doing a brief consultation with them, then having the BRA signed, then seeing the property. You can do it that way as well. I'd say the safest bet is that if you haven't got it signed by the orientation tour, that you should have it signed just after you're finished, and then not move forward unless you can get that signed. If they're still hesitant about signing a contract with you, saying that you guys are working together after you've done a consultation and had time to show them some homes one time out, I would say that then I would hit the brakes and find out why we're not getting that signed. So anytime you guys in your checklist, anytime you want to get it signed prior to that is great. Just make sure you get it signed by that point and not beyond. Jane, thank you for bringing that up. That was a great one. Okay, day of offers. Sending your clients the information about what the offer process is going to look like. The reason we do this is because multiple offers, and we're doing this in a multiple offer scenario. In a solo offer, I would still do it the same way. The whole point is we want to show them the path. We want to show them that everything that we're doing is normal, that these are the steps we're going to take. Particularly in multiple offer scenarios, it is a stressful day. But anytime you're buying a home, it can be a little stressful, and finding out if you're going to get it, at the price that you want. There's a lot on the line. So if you can reassure them that this is the process and this is normal, They're going to feel a lot better as the next steps arrive because they know that they're on the right track. Nothing's coming up that they didn't expect. You let them know that there may be a counter offer. If you guys are the only one that we're going to submit an offer, then the seller is likely going to counter our offer. And then we have a chance to go back and forth and end up in the middle or wherever we're going to be. But that's the normal process. And then letting them know it on multiple offer nights, we're not going to get counter offers, right? And explaining how that process works. And I promise you, if you can give them the path, they will feel much more confident and able to make those decisions when they need to. Because there's nothing worse than the buyer that calls you back the next day because they didn't go to the price that you recommended. And they're like, oh, if it's still available, I'd do it at that price, right? Because now they feel more confident. Now they feel more comfortable. They've had a night to sleep on it. And now we've missed the boat, right? So it's our job to prepare them coming up to it. Yeah, Jane.
I was just going to say multiple offers could be one of those education things for them too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're talking about sending out our education process stuff in between, like before you find the right home, talking about multiple offers in an email would be fantastic. Like if you made a little series of videos where you educate them on all that process and it gets sent out to them as a part of your follow-up campaign, I think that would be fantastic because again, you're educating them and you're showing value. And ultimately, you're making it easier on yourself to get the deal done when the time comes.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so making sure that we call the listing brokerage to find out any information that we may need. So simple things here, of course, what's the closing date that your clients are looking for? You know, that's a big one. Getting all the information that you can to make your offer the best, because it doesn't come down to just price, right? Price is a big one, but closing date can be another deal breaker for people, right? Getting all the terms worked out, asking any questions that you have about the property. It may be a situation where you haven't had a chance to do a home inspection and they don't have a home inspection report for you. You're going to want to ask them about what's the age of the roof, how old is the furnace, the AC. Start gathering as much information as you can. And again, this is something that you want to convey to your buyers because they can get in the heat of the moment. It's sometimes easy to get one of those deals put together real quick. And then they move in and they're like, oh my God, the furnace is like 30 years old. And now we got to replace the AC and there's all these expenses we didn't know about, right? So it's your job to make sure that you're covering all that stuff. So there's a lot that comes along with it. So you're going to ask the listing agent any of that information that you are missing. I think I showed you guys on one of our Thursday tech calls, like a property checklist, like a checklist that you can put together to make sure that you have everything, such as the age of the roof, is the hot water tank a rental, what's the age of the furnace, what's the age of the AC, have there been any major renovations, like so that you've got that checklist of questions. You're also going to call the listing office midday to get an update on number of offers. This is, again, if you're in a multiple offer scenario. And we made this checklist before our office had Broker Bay. A lot of the times now you're going to get updated automatically through either Broker Bay or Connect or whatever the other systems are that everybody's using, Touchbase. But if for some reason the listing brokerage does not have an automated system and you're not getting updates, call the front desk of the listing brokerage, ask them how many offers there are. You want to call and email your client to set up your meeting time to sign the paperwork or email the paperwork to the client for electronic signature. Let me get rid of DocuSign here. I would do this the night before. Let's see.
What do you mean the night before?
Like, so if I say we found the house today and offers are tomorrow, like if it's a set offer date, that I'm making sure that I know my client's schedule for tomorrow so that we can make arrangements for what our plan is going to be. Like, when are we going to do our signatures? And if we are adjusting our price, because a lot of the times we adjust our price based on how many offers there are. So I could give them a price and say, you know what, based on if there's 1 to 5 offers, I think it's going to be $950. But if we get up to 10 offers, we may be more like a $980 house, right? And so sometimes you can pre-sign an offer the night before, but a lot of the times you're going to make a last minute adjustment based on how many offers there are at registration time. Yeah. Linda.
I think it's really important to note here, especially for anyone new that hasn't submitted an offer, that you cannot submit an offer or register an offer until you have signed paperwork.
Yes, exactly. So you have to have an offer signed to register your offer. And the important part of this is we can't be registering offers and giving people information, like other agents information on what their client's going to decide to do, and we don't have an offer signed, right? If your buyer then decides to back out at the last minute, not submit an offer, which happens all the time, you've now told everybody that there's an extra offer on that property when there isn't one, right? So our 801s are acknowledging that we have a signed offer in play, and you can only register that when you do have a signed offer, and that's when you submit your 801. So to be clear, in that case, I'll have my offer signed about my 950. I'll submit my 801. And then if I need to at the end, I'll change my front page to my 980 or whatever price tag I need. But I need to have access to my clients at, say, 5 o'clock to make sure that we have a chance to talk, decide if we're making a change, have the time to make a change, and then submit it. Right. And so it's so much easier now that we're able to do all this electronically, and we're not driving to houses as much as we were before, because before it was much more stressful to make all those arrangements so that you're actually at the property and with your clients and able to make those signatures and changes. Okay, and so then once we have our offer registered, ready to go, signed, we've spoken with our client, we know our strategy, we're then going to present the offer. I can't think of a time right now where I've heard of anybody still presenting in person. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's doing it, but for the most part, it's just going to be the listing agent and their clients. Maybe they're in the same place. Maybe they're doing it over Zoom as well. I know for us, we've done so many of them over Zoom, even with our sellers, just because it's been more convenient. But in general, you're going to be presenting your offer. And so maybe you're doing it via a phone call and an email with that listing agent. First off, I'd make sure that as soon as I know that my client's interested in a property, I'm calling that listing agent, one, not only to get information, but to become buddy-buddy. I want to make sure that I'm good friends with that listing agent. I want to be understanding. I want to let them know that we're working together to put a deal together. I want to make sure that they know about me as much as I know about them, so that I don't get lost in the other offers, and that hopefully so that I stand out among the other offers. So I always make it clear about that I'm not just here to be the guy that wins it tonight, but I'm here to make sure that our deal closes, that I've done all of these steps beforehand with my buyers, and let them know about their pre-approval. Usually I'm lucky enough to let them know that they're working with my preferred mortgage broker. So we're in great communication. It's not just somebody at the bank that I don't know. And that I've prepared them for all the steps that have to happen between here and closing, because it's not enough to have the best offer sometimes. They can fall through. I got to let them know about the deposit, making sure that they can lock this deal down. So my job to help my buyers get picked is also to reassure the listing agent that he or she is working with another professional on the other end, and their clients are going to be safe when they choose our offer. So let's say now that our offer gets picked, we're going to upload all of our fully signed paperwork into Command. And we're going to talk about the conditional period. Maybe, again, we've been talking so much on multiple offers. Maybe you're not conditional, maybe you are. But in general, let's say it's a blanket rule that, of course, you got to let our office know that we have an agreement in place. So if it is conditional, we want to make sure that we're arranging all the inspections required. So if we've got a home inspection, and again, this is something I would do beforehand, to have a home inspector in mind that you've reached out to and check out their availability. You could do this the day after. It's usually okay. There's enough home inspectors out there that you're going to find somebody that's going to do it. But when I've got a couple preferred guys, I message them beforehand and say, hey, how does Tuesday look? This is a time that works for my clients. And again, I'm showing my clients the roadmap. I'm reminding them that, hey, even if we get it tonight, we still have to do our home inspection. We still have to get our financing in place. I'm going to need all of our documents to send to our mortgage broker. At this point, you should have their mortgage broker's information, or whoever their lending agent is, so that you can send all that info.
Dylan, for the inspections, the various inspections, so you as the agent arranges that even though the client's paying?
Yes, it's up to you. I mean, they can arrange it if they've got a home inspector that they like. That's great. For the most part, though, your average buyer doesn't walk around knowing too many home inspectors unless it's a friend of theirs, right?
Yeah.
So I'm usually recommending them one of my guys. I still give them 3 names, but to be honest, with home inspectors, there's usually 1 or 2 that have just served us so well that I say, hey, look,
Right.
I know I should be giving you a multiple choice list of names for you to choose from, but these 2 have never let me down. They're the guys I stick with after all these years. So let's give them a shot.
Okay.
And then how do they feel comfortable? And of course, you want to let them know that they can call and interview that home inspector as well. Give
Okay.
them a chance. But yeah, so in general, I usually arrange it. I would say my goal here is to be very full service for my clients. So if that's
Right.
one more thing that I can take off their plate that they're not stressing about, that's great. And also it's another thing that I know how time sensitive this stuff is, whereas sometimes your clients may not have a firm grasp on that all the time, at least not to the extent that we do. So I want to make sure that it's getting checked off right away and I can control it instead of me having to follow up and say, hey, did you book that home inspector? Right? Have you checked in on their time yet? If they got back to you and they're like, oh, I was busy at work. Right. Well, I'm busy at work too. I can make that call for you because that's my job, right? So if everything goes well at your home inspection and your financing, you can prepare your notices of fulfillments for any of your conditions. If something comes up, you'll have to do an amendment. It'll be a time where you can do a little bit of renegotiating between the 2 parties. We never put a home inspection condition in there for the purpose of renegotiating. It's there to protect your clients from any major unknown structural deficiencies, anything that you can't see. It's not a chance to go back and haggle over little things. And make sure that you prepare your client for that, because it'll make it so much easier for yourself that you let them know that this is a clause in there to protect us from any unknown deficiencies, anything major. So that, that cracked window that we saw, or the broken seal on the window, or whatever little minor stuff there is in the house, that's not what this is about. This is a chance to protect us. And this will save you from having to go back and make a phone call because your buyers insist that they want to renegotiate for $1,000 over something minute, right? So again, that should be a part of our system, about talking about those conditions and what happens on the day of. So let's say everything goes well. You're going to do your notice of fulfillments that you have, in fact, fulfilled your conditions for financing, let's say home inspection. We're going to submit all our paperwork prior to the condition expiry. This is in particular those fulfillments, making sure that you actually send them to the listing agent so that they've been notified that our conditions are now fulfilled. We're going to submit everything into command. And it's not on here, but I would say submit paperwork to buyer's lawyer and mortgage broker, so that they've got a copy of the MLS listing, agreement of purchase and sale, and then any notice of fulfillments or amendments.
So that's always our job, is to deal with the lawyers and the mortgage brokers in terms of
The way
all that paperwork.
Yeah, our office does check in on a lot of that stuff as far as I know, but the way I look at it is I want to be in control of it. I want to make sure that I've connected with that lawyer. I've been already in talks with the mortgage broker at this point a number of times, right? Checking in, making sure that they are in fact pre-approved, finding out about their financial state. So I'm going to send all that information off. Your mortgage broker, if you were conditional on financing, you would have sent them this the morning after it was accepted. And let's say if conditional on financing, send APS and MLS listing to mortgage broker.
But Dylan, sorry, it's Elisa. So
Yeah.
with regards to that, because there's privacy issues with that, right? So we would have to have the client like advise the mortgage broker or lawyer that they can communicate with us, because technically they really, right?
Yeah, well, the mortgage broker, that introduction comes from the seller. They're the one, that's how I got their information.
Yes, yes.
And then
that they can disclose information or they
Yeah.
can talk about it with us. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So again, that will have all have happened earlier on before I'm really getting them and my car to look at homes, right? Because I want to make sure that I know what that pre-approval is. So if for any reason the way we were connected that wasn't made clear, then that's always followed up with the mortgage broker. They'll always ask me, hey, can you have the client send me an email saying that's okay to share that information? Yeah, great point. So just making sure that all that information is submitted. And again, going back to, is this our responsibility? I say yes, that I want to make sure that I'm managing my file well to make sure that everybody has what they need. And my going from firm to close, I'm following up with this information as well. Anushka, when does the buyer get a real estate lawyer? So there's a couple of ways you can look at this. You can, depending on your closing date, if you've got a decent closing, you can make sure that you do that like once you have a deal in place. If you're on the ball, you can start making recommendations beforehand. But if you don't have a quick closing where you need to have anything lined up right away, once you have a deal in place, you can say, hey, here's 3 real estate lawyers that I recommend. Make your phone calls and let me know which one you want to work with. So firm to close. First, is there anything that it's 2:42? We're not going to get to the seller checklist. I'm going to move through a little bit faster. Okay, guys. I love that we're going into depth here because the goal is that you can walk away with this information so that you've got a process that you're following. So firm to close, just make sure that you're following up and checking in with your client. Schedule any revisits to the property. Usually in your offer, you're going to have 2 visits in there. Call your lawyer and your lender a week before closing to make sure they have everything they need. And I would actually say this 2 weeks before. I actually usually check in with the lawyer around the title search date, just to say, hey, title search is tomorrow, just checking in. How's everything looking on your end? Call client the day before closing, make sure they're all set. And I would say that adding in here a follow-up system to make sure that you're providing them more service is fantastic. Sending them a checklist. Here's all the things you're going to need to do prior to moving. Changing your information at Canada Post, changing information with Revenue Canada, changing information with the kids' schools, make sure that you're picking up boxes for moving, make sure that you're changing your ID, all your billing addresses adjusted. The more that you can provide a service to them, the better. After closing, you can call 1 week after, see how they're settling in, and schedule a visit to come see the house. If you worked with a great listing agent on that side, call and thank them, let them know it was a pleasure working with them. And you can refer them to our team leader. Any chance to recruit and build your downline is always a good one. And then if you're building in closing gifts into your platform, into your business, having it set up that's ordered and ready to go for whenever you want to drop it off. Some people will do on closing day, they'll be there with the basket or the gift. Other people will bring it on the day when you do your visit to check in. So it's up to you guys. All right, any questions regarding the buyer checklists? I can move down there. All right, let's switch over to the seller one. Here we go. So again, if it's a referral, thanking the person that referred the client, make initial contact and do your pre-qualifying script, adding them to your database, setting the date of the consultation. You can add the lead to your pipeline. Start gathering your info for that appointment. Check out any listing history, geo warehouse and impact reports, doing a little CMA, so like your neighborhood trends and stats. Call the day before the consultation to confirm. So same thing, like if you're into doing like the quick page stuff, sending a little video saying that you're looking forward to meeting them, talking again about what you're going to be covering at your meeting. You know, at any consultation, the best thing to always ask just when you first get there is what would make this meeting perfect? If it was the end of the meeting and you're like, man, Dylan was fantastic, what would have to happen today? Right? And so make sure that you're covering everything. And if you're sending out one of those questionnaires or checklists beforehand, they're gonna give you a lot of that information so that you'll have that to make sure that you're covering it. Make sure that you're preparing your pre-listing package, practicing your presentation, doing a little script role play. And we've got on here, setting an appointment for CMA review after the paperwork signing. So this is if you're doing a two-step process. If you're just doing a one-step listing process where your goal is to get the paperwork signed at that meeting, make sure that you have all that stuff prepared. In general, it's a good rule of thumb to make sure that you have all that information ready anyways. But if it's a very unique property, it may be a little bit harder for you to give them a price without having seen it and making those adjustments, right? Especially when we get a little bit more rural, it can be very challenging. Or any very niche neighborhoods, it can be challenging. So you just let them know, I came prepared to talk generally about what's going on in the market today. But what I want to do is after I've had the chance to tour your house, I want to take some time and complete my CMA, complete my market review, and come back to you with a more accurate number because of X, Y, and Z. So following up from that, after your meeting, you may complete your CMA if it wasn't already done beforehand, and then book your return visit to review it. And we've got on here that when you get your paperwork signed, have a minimum of 2 weeks from signing to your launch date. Doesn't always work this way, but this is ideal to make sure that you've got time to get your photography done and start doing your pre-marketing. So getting all your Facebook and social media ads ready, being ready to door knock the neighborhood, being able to do a coming soon open house, neighborhood sneak peek open house, all that bonus information and marketing opportunities prior to it being on MLS where all the other agents are going to come swarming in. Taking all that paperwork and making sure that you're uploading it to Command, updating your database, making sure that you have them now tagged as a seller, adding them to whatever your seller system may be, as we talked about with the buyer package, making sure that you have like a follow-up system, booking your stager, depending on how you want to have this set up, you could either have a stager come in for the consultation, or maybe at your first walkthrough, you do a staging consult with them, depending on your comfortability and level with that. Of course, booking your photographer, preparing all your marketing materials and social media ads, making sure you're getting any information from the client that you may be missing. So some big ones there are a copy of the survey, if they have it, and their taxes. You'll need their property taxes for when you're uploading your MLS paperwork. And so that's something that you're not going to typically find out on your own. So you ask them for that at that meeting. A bonus, especially if it's a more rural property or something that's a little bit more niche, is asking them for copies of any of their utility bills. If it's a property where you know buyers are going to be inquiring about that, it's good to get that information beforehand. And again, using a checklist to keep track of all the information about the property. So if I go property info, for example, keep a running tally of this for yourself to keep track of it. Contract, what you're going to be listing at, what your offer date's going to be, the style of home, number of bedrooms, getting the square footage. You can buy that report on MPAC. Is the basement finished? What's the age of the home? Age of the roof, furnace, AC, hot water tank, any rental items, any specific notes you want to make about the property. I always ask the client, what are your 5 favorite things about this property? What do you think the selling features are? What do you think buyers are going to like most about your home and your property? So you can make sure that you highlight that. Age of the windows, age of the deck in the backyard if there is one, any landscaping in the backyard, and finding out about the appliances. Now we get into getting ready to market. So our 1 week before launch. Any questions up until now? Anything we think we missed or that we could add in? All right. If anybody has anything they want to add, feel free to put it in the chat. So 1 week before launch, we're going to door knock with our postcards for our wine and cheese open house. This is if you're able to do one. But doing a neighborhood sneak peek prior to going on MLS is always a fantastic touch and an opportunity for you to interview with all the neighbors in the area. They want to see what you're doing to market this home, right? And you're making a nice little social event for everybody to get together, and you're going to want to shine it that night with all your marketing info at the house, all the information you have about it, all the information about the area and the neighborhood. If you're not doing a wine and cheese event or a neighborhood sneak peek, you could just call the neighborhood, let them know that you have a listing coming soon. They live in the area. They must love it. Do they have anybody that's interested in moving to the area? Any friends or family that want to live a little bit closer? Add in your coming soon rider. Again, delivering coming soon postcards to the neighborhood, doing your door knocking. Your social media ads. The reason why we do the 2 weeks prior to going on MLS is so that you have this time where it's just you advertising this listing before it's on all the other websites that MLS pushes it to. Marketing to other agents in the area. A fantastic way to get people interested in your property. We know that like 90% of the time, a home is going to be purchased with a cooperating brokerage, cooperating agent. Let's start marketing to them because they're going to bring us our buyer. And in areas and times when we're going to be doing multiple offers, the more of those people you can get in, the better you're going to serve your client with the amount of offers and sale price on the night of. Making sure that you're going to the house prior to the photographer arriving. This is just double checking, making sure they're putting any toilet seats down, fluffing any pillows, moving anything last minute, making sure the lights are turned on. And again, do this at the discretion with COVID protocols. I know some photographers or some virtual, some virtual tour companies are requesting that nobody's there present with the photographer. If you can be, I would be, just to make sure everything's organized and tidy the way it should be. And just also making sure that you're giving that photographer some direction on what you're looking for and what you want to highlight in the house. Getting our lockbox on the property, verifying our room measurements if we haven't done so already. And then once you have your pictures from the photographer, finalize any of your marketing and get it sent to the printer. Now, on the day of launch, if you're doing your sneak peek after you're live, which sometimes happens, we'll go live on Thursday and do our sneak peek on the same day. Make sure that you're picking up your wine and cheese. So move that around to wherever it fits into your system best. Great thing about this template is it's just a template. You guys can build off of it and subtract from it. But it's a lot of great ideas on ways that you can shine and make sure that you're keeping track and serving your client at a high level. So of course, making sure that we're picking up our feature sheets, listings, remove shoe signs, feature sheet stand, bring it into the house so that all your information is there. In COVID times, I would also recommend bringing hand sanitizer, maybe bringing a box of gloves, the little shoe booties, whatever you want to make sure that you have prepared there at the house. It's fantastic. But I would say at the very least, make sure that you have hand sanitizer on hand by the front door. We're going to make sure that we broker load our listing to MLS. Make sure all of our paperwork is in command. We have our broker bay instructions all set up. Posting our weekend open houses to manage my profile on Stratus. So the reason we do this is because I don't know if this has been changed or not, but prior to that was the best way to make sure that your open houses were showing up on the public version of the site. So realtors, when you put in the field on your MLS data sheet when the open houses are, all realtors will be able to see that. But sometimes if you don't insert your open house under the Manage My Profile section, it won't show for the public. And of course, updating your clients every step along the way, letting them know how the wine and cheese went, letting them know how the photos go, of course, sending them the photos, all those little steps to keep them very engaged in the process. So doing all your follow-up after you're online, following up with any of the neighbors from the open house, anybody that you door knocked previously, letting them know that you are now online, updating them with any information that they asked for previously, making sure that our social media ads are all up, that we're advertising our open houses, updating our clients before and after the open house. And so one of the things I would do here as well is, as a part of your touch system, if you're doing an open house, make sure that you're sending them an email with best practices for the open house, things that they should do to get the home ready, making sure that all their valuables are tucked away, nothing obvious left out on a countertop or bedside table. Making sure that you're constantly doing your full, feedback calls to all the agents that have shown the property, and updating your client bi-weekly, weekly, daily, whatever makes sense for them and for you, to provide all the feedback, both good and bad. Now, Daniela, if you don't have access to these yet, I'll make sure that we do, but you should have, if Jen hasn't sent it already, an invite to this resources folder. Resources, it looks like this. It has all this information in it. Each of these folders has more documents, but I'll verify and make sure that you're on there. And there we go. So on offer date, making sure that we're following up with all the agents, of course, as we go through, sending them a guideline for what your offer setup is going to be. So if you're going to be offering multiple rounds, when you want people to register by, when you're presenting by, making sure you've got an updated list of fixtures and chattels, Schedule B, any of that information. And when we talk about Broker Bay on another class, I can show you what our template looks like for that as well. If there's no offer date, then we're going to receive the offer. We're going to notify the clients and arrange a meeting time. We're going to receive and review the offer and start to begin our negotiations. Once we have an accepted offer, we're going to upload everything into Command. If it's conditional, we're going to communicate with the cooperating agent, find out what's going on with their financing and their home inspection, arranging a time to get that home inspector in, and asking them about their financing, and just making sure that you don't go quiet for 5 days until the deadline, that you're in regular communication with that agent. And as a buyer agent, for professional courtesy, don't go dark on your listing agents. Communicate with them as well what's going on. Give them updates as you get them from the mortgage broker, so that they're not sitting there wondering where the hell you've gone. So during the conditional period, we have here, touching base with the buyer's agent, checking down those conditions and the timing for the inspection, making sure that we've got the status certificate ready and delivered, making sure that at the very least you've touched with them on the morning, the day the conditions are due, and that you're expecting that waiver, notice of fulfillment or amendment to come through. When the notice of fulfillment does come through, it's our job to acknowledge it and return back to the cooperating broker so that we know that they have removed their conditions. We're going to upload everything into Command. And then there'll be a reporting firm document that we have to send into Command as well. And whether you got a conditional offer or a firm offer, when it goes firm, you'll have to send that. And if you get a conditional offer, you'll have to send them a reporting conditional document. So this is to make sure that we can update it on MLS. So making sure that the client, the lawyers, lenders, anybody that needs that paperwork, making sure that we're checking it off that they've received it. And those are your main ones, lawyers and lenders. Lenders for sure on the sale. If your seller is also purchasing, then the lender is going to need that information as well. So you have to send it off. And then, of course, just making sure that we're following up with them, checking in on how things are going, updating them with a checklist for getting ready to sell, getting ready to move, posting our sold success on our social media, ideally a picture of you with the clients and tagging them in the photo. Make sure that you pick up everything from the house now that it's sold. I would also add in there, depending on if you've had a lot of showings at the property, I would consider removing your lockbox and then just make sure that you go put it back on for any buyer visits. If you've had 80 people through the home, that's 80 people that know that lockbox code. So it's not always the safest to just leave your lockbox on for the buyer visits. It's good to take it down, put it back up when the buyer books. You can leave it with the client as well and just say, hey, when the time comes, this is the code. You can put that back on the front door when you step out for the buyer appointment. So dropping off our moving package and checklist, champagne, wine, beer, any little touches you can to make this enjoyable and stand out is always a good one. Send them referrals for movers, any cleaners. Again, I think a solid checklist will make that fantastic. And again, if you're doing automated smart plans so that your system is the same all the time, I've got a templated email for my mover recommendations because I get asked so frequently. So instead of typing it down all the time, I've got one templated email. Here's my opinion on these 3 moving companies, and here's what clients have said. Take a look. There you go. Then all the way up until closing, of course, checking in with the lawyer's office 2 weeks prior to closing, making sure that everything's all good. Make sure we're not getting surprises on closing. On closing, you can visit the day of. You can make arrangements afterwards. It's up to you, however you guys want to do that. If you're dropping off a basket, if you're dropping off some other kind of gift. Again, calling the cooperating brokerage, letting them know that our team leader can reach out, that it was a pleasure working with them. And then now you're going to transfer them onto your 36 touch system, now that we've updated it. So that once a client has worked with you, we're not just forgetting about them, that they're going to be on our 36 touch system. All right, guys. Well, there's buying and selling from start to finish. Obviously, we're going to be covering more classes where we focus in on specific areas of that, specific skills and systems, of course. But overall, there's a start to finish. Does anybody have any questions before we part ways today? Oh, all right.
No,
Well,
just thanks for your time.
always, always. Well, you guys take care. And what's today? Today's Wednesday. I will see you tomorrow morning for our Systems Thursday. All right, guys, take
Thanks so
care.
much.
Thanks.
Very
Have a good
welcome.
day.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.